You're listening to Reignite, a podcast about facing impossible odds. I'm MJ.
And I am Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
We did it! We finished Mass Effect 2. It only took us over a year.
Yeah. Kenneth Shepard of the Normandy FM podcast picked on me when we were at PAX East together, that they're already on Dragon Age and we're still making our way through Mass Effect. I'm like, look, you mushed 10 missions into one episode, which is fine, but that's not what we're about here. But I thought it was pretty funny. And I do appreciate that there are more concise versions of what we do also that are just looking for a more larger overview and review, which is more or less what they do.
We're nitpicky.
We are nitpicky.
We want to get into the grooves, into the fine details.
We did, however, complete the Suicide Mission and all of the bonus DLC, additional DLC, and side quests. We are now completed with the game. The book is closed on Mass Effect 2 for this podcast. And so we wanted to take some time in this episode, in lieu of a summary or a plot, to just talk about some of our favorites, least favorites, maybe restate some complaints we've had with the second game, and then maybe take some questions as well and talk about what we're doing next to wrap up the season, which I'm excited about. I do want to take this opportunity to say, yes, everyone who is emailed, tweeted, texted, Facebook messaged, we saw that article from a fan site about a possible remaster for Mass Effect. Sounds great. There's nothing proven. So while we were all just as excited as you are, unfortunately, there's not a lot to talk about because we have literally no proof except a blank slide from a marketing presentation. So we keep our fingers crossed just like the rest of y'all. If they do officially announce it, though, and it stays true that there's no Switch version, I will riot because I want to play Mass Effect on the go, period. End of story. That's it. I need that. That's what I need.
Well, I just added a question to our outline based on what you just said.
Okay.
For a second, sure. I thought you were going to reference the article that John shared with me the other day, which was about why the Thane romance is so abrupt. And your two options are, you should focus on your son, or I want you. Which are two...
I didn't actually read that article yet.
He shared it with me, and they're two vastly different, conversations. And it's because the initial paraphrase that they had was too subtle and people didn't realize that it was the romance option, so they had to make it very explicit, which was not done super well, but no. I guess I get it.
I guess. I mean, I'm still more mad about Thane not being queer, because he is.
Okay. We have talked about that.
I know. We can't spend a whole other episode talking about this.
But you know what we should talk about? We should talk
about...
What
should we talk about?
We should talk about our favorite moments of Mass Effect 2.
Yes, we should. And so we've broken this out into 4 categories for both most favorite and least favorite moments. Story mission, squad mate, loyalty mission, and side quest.
By side mission, just to let you know what my brain was doing, I was thinking things like helping Gianna Parasini, or dealing with Conrad Werner, or tracking down the murderer, things like that.
Yeah. And we haven't really previously discussed this. We're going to kind of fly by the seat of our pants. So if we lump things together or don't have something, that could happen as well. But let's start with favorite story mission. And this one's always hard for me to pick from Mass Effect 2. I feel like with Mass Effect 1, the way the missions are set up, it's way easier to have a favorite because I feel like, for one, there's less of them, right? Because we don't have any of the loyalty missions. We have things similar to the loyalty missions, but they're not quite as involved.
Right.
And so in this, I mean, I think I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Grunt's loyalty mission is probably my favorite loyalty mission. That always will be a favorite, mostly because he's my lizard son. And even though there's not a lot involved in the mission, like when we had Nelson on and he talked about, it's the most we learn about the Krogan, and that's always super fun for me. Also, reuniting with Rex is just awesome every time. I love that part of it, which can happen no matter which mission you're doing on Tachanka, but I kind of lump it into Rex or Grunt's mission rather. So Grunt's loyalty mission is easily my favorite loyalty mission, which I've gone out of order now.
Yeah, I was about to say, I was like, I thought we would do this. One of us would say the story mission, the other would say their story mission, and you kind of did your own thing here.
We can go in order after this, but why don't we talk about your favorite loyalty mission also first, since I jumped to that, because it's the first mission that jumped into my head, to be honest. But I'll go in order in the next section, I promise.
Okay. I think my favorite loyalty mission might be Kasumi's. It might be Stolen Memory, because it subverts the loyalty mission kind of plot.
Right.
You're doing something a little different. It is just you and Kasumi. There's the obligatory BioWare party scene, which I love. It's my favorite part of any BioWare game. Like, I love the party scene. I'm about it. It's my favorite thing. So I like the subversion. I like that there's two different ways you can go at it. You can be sneaky, or you can just go and fight a bunch of people. I like that there are options. And also, I like that Kasumi is such an interesting and three-dimensional character. Like, I just love taking that time to get to know her, because I don't really get an opportunity to get to know her outside of this mission.
Yeah, it's something we'll talk about when we get to least favorite squad mates and loyalty missions, I have a feeling. But, like, you forget Kasumi is a DLC character because of how integrated she is to the ship life and how involved her story is. You feel like she's a full-fledged character, unlike the other DLC characters Aid. And so, like, I think that's what makes that mission also really great, is, like, you're brought into her world.
Yeah.
My favorite story mission, it's really hard to pick outside of the loyalty missions because they all stand out so crisply. Mm-hmm. But, like, yeah, I don't know. It's tough for me to pick my favorite story mission, just because also for me, the main story, the main through line story, seems so interconnected. Like, we played it in pieces, but the reality is, before we played it together, I always kind of lumped it all together as one giant blob and then thought of the loyalty missions as separate, whereas we actually broke it down this time. But honestly, I think the mission where you go off and you have to control Joker is probably one of my favorites. And what ensues after, we lumped it together with the suicide mission because it's the first time you feel human.
Yeah. That's a really good scene.
Shepard is human, but, like, is superhuman as far as characters go. Like, they are a superhero within this world. They are still limited, but you never feel weak or hindered in any way. And, like, and also the thing about Joker is you don't feel weak because of his disability. You feel weak because you're a person. Like, it's less to do about the fact that he has brittle bone and more to be he's not a soldier. Yeah. He's a civilian. He's a pilot, but he's a civilian. And so, like, he can't really fire a gun. He can't really fight. So he has to find a way to survive. And it's a very humanizing moment and a scary moment. You know, we've talked about in both games, the first and this one, it's not a horror game, but there are definitely horror moments that feel like a horror game. And this was one of those. And for not having really any combat or any, intricacies of a lot of the other missions, it still is really impactful every time you do it.
Along those same lines, I really like the Reaper IFF acquiring mission. Mm-hmm. Because that also has a lot of horror elements. Mm-hmm. I didn't love the boss fight for that one, but overall, for, like, obtaining new information, obtaining a new, like, squad mate, and just seeing what it's like to be inside of a Reaper, I thought that was really interesting. And I like when I get to learn more about the world, and I felt like it was very rich in lore.
For sure. Yeah, like there are often audio recordings and video clips throughout the entire game, but all of the ones on the Derelict Reaper are really haunting and interesting. Like the conversation between the two people who are remembering the same story, the same about their wife, but it can't be both of their wives. It's only one person's wife, but they both remember the story and remember the event.
Yeah.
It is really unnerving and really cool.
It was so spooky.
Yeah. Also, like, we've talked at length on the show about the cinematography and the way certain scenes are framed. And the first time you actually meet Legion, and he says Shepherd Commander and just kind of stands there above you. It's really cool. Yeah, I would agree that's a great mission as well, for sure.
Let's see. Sorry, 2 pages are stuck together. What happened to this?
How did your pages stick together?
I don't know. Someone, somewhere, used my book
Gasp.
as a coaster.
Gasp.
I bet it was John's cat. Anyway.
But why would the cat need a coaster?
Because
Cats
she commits
don't have
atrocities. This is our thing.
Now I have to leave this in.
This has been the thing lately. I insist that she commits atrocities. John defends her.
The next, we'll talk about our favorite squad mate. I'm going to let MJ go first because we already know the answer.
Oh, my favorite squad mate is Miranda.
Yeah, right, bullshit. No one would believe that for a minute.
It's my boyfriend, Garrus. Look, I know I talk basically every episode about how much I love Garrus, but I'm going to lay it out for you entirely. The reason why I love Garrus so much is because when you first pick him up, he says, hey, your plan has me walking into hell with you, but I'm going to do it. Like, I know that this is going to be dangerous. I know that I will likely die, but you are my best friend. You are the person that I care about most in the world, and I am going with you regardless. And he has always supported you. He's always had your back. When you have to face either Caden or Ashley on Horizon, they treat you so negatively, and Garrus has never treated you that way. Like, you have teamed up with a pro-human terrorist group, and Garrus, an alien whom is often targeted by that group, still supports you. And it's so important as a friendship, as a romance. It is awkward and sweet and genuine and so pure. And that is why Garrus is always going to be in my heart for the rest of my life.
Forever and ever and ever.
Forever and ever and ever.
I mean, this is the section of this discussion where no one is surprised and everyone is just like, we get it. Because, of course, my favorite squad mate, especially in this game, is Grunt. I love Grunt. I love my lizard son. I will die for my lizard son. He must be protected at all costs, even though he's probably also protecting me. The reason Grunt's such a great character, there's a lot of reasons. On a meta level, the reason I love Grunt is because he's voiced by one of my favorite voice actors of all time, which is Stephen Bloom, who's also the voice of Spike Spiegel, who's also the voice of tons of different anime and video game characters. He's Wolverine in most modern cartoon X-Men interpretations. So, yeah, it's always going to be my sweet lizard son. And I like his growth as a Krogan versus other Krogans that we've met. You know, he's tank bred, he's treated as an outcast, and his whole story arc is, you know, a coming of age, understanding, growth, and of evolution that we get to see fast tracked because of his origins. So yeah. So that is my favorite character in this game. In 3 it'll be harder because characters come back that I also really like. But we'll handle that when we get there. We've already talked about loyalty mission, so now let's move on to side mission. I feel like this is harder in this game. I just feel like there are less memorable side missions because, like the 2 you mentioned at the top of the show, are from the first game. They were like more memorable, non-direct mission-related characters. I feel like, whereas in this, like, we don't spend a ton of time on the Citadel and stuff. Do you have one on deck of side missions that you really love?
That I really love? Give me a sec.
Okay. Because, like, you mentioned Conrad Werner, but because I didn't complete the Conrad Werner arc,
I
he
really
doesn't
like
show up in
Conrad
this.
Werner, but I don't know if that's my favorite.
Yeah.
I think my favorite kind of moment was helping Gianna Parasini take down the Asari merchant who was stealing designs from someone, like from some corporation. And she got you to like talk this merchant into giving you rare designs that she's not supposed to have.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I liked being able to basically like have a girl date with Gianna. And like obviously Gianna's idea of a date is let's take down a criminal.
Right, obviously.
I love her character, and I liked getting a chance to spend time with her. That's
pretty good, yeah. Actually, mine might also similarly be on the same planet. It's the love story with the Krogan and the Asari.
Oh yeah, that's a good one too.
I love that. Like his like reading the poetry at full volume while you go up to her and convincing her that he's all right. Like that whole thing is just great.
I maintain that you are a monster if you tell her to break up with him.
I agree.
Like, he is respectful of her choices and her body. He understands that, like, any children they might have would be Asari through and through. He knows that. That's not why he wants to be with her. Like, it's so good. He has a steady job. He's kind and loving. Girl, go for it.
Get you a man who can do both.
Yes. And seeing them later on Tachanka, it's hilarious.
It's so good, yeah.
I love it.
He's so excited to show her the home world, and she's just trying to be supportive.
They're so pure.
They are. Well, we'll move on to our next section, which is we're going to talk about our least favorite moments from the game. Mass Effect 2 is not flawless. It is one of my favorite games, but what keeps it from being my favorite game, which will always be Chrono Trigger, is because it has its flaws. And we're going to talk about this a little more later, but some of the flaws make the game what it is, and I feel like some of the others could vastly be improved. So for main story mission, my least favorite main story mission, it's tough to really choose one. I mean, I don't really like a lot of the Cerberus go-between missions. They tend to be my least favorite of all the things that we've talked about. They just feel very fetch questy and kill questy. But I want to be more specific than that. So if you have one, please fill the silence.
Yeah, my least favorite story mission was probably Horizon. Not because it was bad. I don't think that it was bad. I think that it was, solid as far as missions go. The reason why it's my least favorite is because it made me feel the worst. It's first of all, I hate bugs. Thank you for putting me in a setting where I am surrounded by them. Love that. Fantastic. It's bad enough I'm fighting giant bugs. I don't need to be surrounded by flying bugs. Oh, it's so terrible. I hate it. And then the interaction with Ashley/Kaden, it's so upsetting when you're so deep in your character and their feelings. I'm just like, why won't you just let me talk to you about this? Why are you just shutting me down immediately? And it's sad and it's hurtful. And while writing wise it's good and playing wise it's fine, it's just it made me feel the worst. And I was just like, I don't like this. This does not make me happy. This does not spark joy. It's quite the opposite.
That's fair. Honestly, I would say that my least favorite regular mission, it might be part of me wants to say it's the professor, right? I think it's an okay mission, and I like everything with Morden in it, but I feel like a lot of the rest of it is filler, right? The conversation with Morden is some of my favorite parts, although I do like when you have to turn on the air filtration system again. So no, maybe not that. I might have to agree with you. I think, actually, no, I do have I have a least favorite. Now I remember. The Warlord. The Warlord is a terrible mission.
That's fair. That is also not great.
The stuff with Okir is okay, and I like Okir as a character. I like that they built him up, and it would have been interesting to have him in your party. But it's kind of just gunfight after gunfight until you get to Okir, and then it's a boss fight, and then you go back to Okir, he's dead, and you take the pod. There's not much to the mission.
All the settings look the same.
Yeah, the whole area looks the same. So I feel like that could have been a cutscene. I get why it wasn't, but it just didn't feel very involved and was very samey.
Yeah, I agree. The Warlord mission was not great.
Okay, so moving on to our least favorite squad mate. I feel like we're going to have the same least favorite squad mate.
Is yours Zaid?
Yes.
Yeah, Zaid. I wanted to like Zaid, but he did not offer me a lot of opportunity to do so.
Yeah. I think the problem is, like, because Jacob used to be my least favorite squad mate, and he's still not one of my favorites, but at least with Jacob we get some character development and you get to know him. I've said this before to death. I said it in our Zaid mission when we did his loyalty mission. He is performed well. The actor who performs Zaid does a phenomenal job, and I love the character as far as how he's performed and how he's delivered in that way. But he's just kind of acquired. The loyalty mission is not great, and unlike Kasumi, you don't really get a sense of who he is, where he's from, what he's done. Like, the fact that he used to lead the Blue Suns is huge, and it's like a line. It's a throwaway line. Like, why don't we get to, like, do a mission where it has to do with the history of the Blue Suns and why, he left or something? Yeah,
technically we did.
Yeah, I guess. It feels like a missed opportunity. And, like, I feel like it's safe to say that going further, it's probably our least favorite loyalty mission also, yes? Are we in agreement on that?
No.
Okay. Well, then I will move on into the loyalty mission and say Zaid's loyalty mission is my least favorite. I think it's just bland and boring, and I don't really, like, they don't give you a reason to care about Zaid enough. And, like, all Zaid wants you to do is abandon your morals and go after this guy. And it's just a sloppy and unfun mission that doesn't give more depth to the character. So for me, it's easily my least favorite loyalty mission.
Jacob's is my least favorite.
Okay.
Jacob's is my least favorite because I feel like it is a betrayal to the character. It's sloppy. It's lazy. I'm exhausted of... Hey, as a plot point, why don't we have a bunch of women who have been raped? Why not? I hate it. Like, it's just... We didn't even talk about it. It was so bad. We decided to rewrite it. It was so bad.
It's true.
And I feel like our rewrite was much more effective.
I would agree.
And Jacob deserved much better. Like, he's not among my favorite squad mates, but since we... talked about the loyalty mission the way we did and how it was such a betrayal to him, I can't bring myself to hate him as much as I did before.
That's fair.
He is still kind of a bland and boring character who doesn't have a lot of dimension, but it's not his fault. It is the fault of that loyalty mission, in my opinion.
That's fair. Yeah, it's not my least favorite, but it's definitely one of my least. And I get that. All that stuff is valid, and I also get where you're coming from. Obviously, certain things will stand out to you more than me with my privilege being a white male. So I get that for sure. I'm grateful that we brought Chuck on for that episode and that he helped us rebuild it as a better mission. And I'm hoping that maybe there's some hope for that in the future if we do get a remaster. But yeah, that's all totally valid. I get that.
I doubt they would change that, but...
No.
If they did, that'd be cool.
Yes, it's unlikely. And now our least favorite side mission. I can start this off and just say all of the Firewalker stuff. All of it is boring and pointless. And, like, you want to do something interesting with the Hammerhead? Everything in Overlord with the Hammerhead is interesting because it's at least fun to traverse that area. Everything, all of the Firewalker missions are boring. And, like, it's weird. Like, in the first game, I hated the Mako, but I loved the planetary exploration. In the second game, I hated the planetary exploration, but I liked the Hammerhead. So, yeah, it's kind of, you win some, you lose some, I guess. So, yeah, all the Firewalker stuff, garbage.
I agree. I also really didn't like the... land here, shoot up some people, okay, you're done.
Yep.
Like, those were boring. It was just like, Okay, I don't even get some lore out of this. All right, I guess. Thank you. It was just like a way for you to get more resources and experience, and that's fine. But you could make it interesting.
Yeah, no, it's a gaming trope, and side quests often in gaming are just here's a thing, go do a thing. And there are ways that you can do that and make it more interesting. I'm actually playing the second Witcher game, which I'd never played before, and something I would actually recommend to you, MJ, because there's a lot of choices. Even though you're playing as a pre-generated character, there's a lot of choice and different paths, and I think you'd enjoy that. And you can play it on easy and just enjoy the story. But that said, like, I've seen some of the side missions in that game go some interesting paths that, like, with just a little more effort, Mass Effect could have done. And I don't know if Witcher 2 came out after Mass Effect 2 or not. I think so. But either way, I just feel like I agree. Like, it's a gaming trope to go somewhere and shoot up some enemies so you can gain experience. But that doesn't mean we can't do something with it.
Yeah, agree. What mission had the greatest impact on you?
I feel like everyone's going to know the answer, but I'll restate it. It's Legion's loyalty mission. Every time, I mean, we've told the story, and I'll repeat for those who maybe are listening to this episode as your first episode, which, why? Go back. But anyway, the first time I got to that section, I had to put the controller down when you have to choose to rewrite or to destroy. I couldn't. I couldn't decide super easily. It's still one of those missions that really affects me in a way. Even though I know what the choice is, I know that ultimately the choice doesn't matter that much beyond the moral implications because the game kind of brushes over it after that. But it's still a huge deal. So, yeah, Legion's loyalty mission, the Heretics mission, is I'd say the mission that impacted me the most.
That's a very good one. I spent a lot of time thinking about that one too. But for me, I think I am torn between Jacob's mission as being most impactful because this is the most I've ever thought about it and picked it apart and like found what was problematic in it and thought about ways that it could improve. Or Overlord, which teaches us a lot about the Geth. It really dives in to issues that are still present today with how people handle autism and like family abuse and domestic violence and things like that, and how it can happen in ways that you don't expect. So I think those two like really hit hard when you sit down and you dissect them the way that we do.
Yeah, that's legit. I mean, I will say that more missions weighed on me emotionally this time than they did before. And I didn't mention it here, but I probably should at least give an honorable mention to Garrus's loyalty mission, because after having Garrus pull the trigger, I felt bad immediately. Yeah. Immediately, within seconds. And that's never happened before. I've done Renegade playthroughs before. I've not thought twice about that stuff. But because we've put so much of ourselves in these versions of Shepard purposely for the experiment of this show, it weighed on me in a different way. So that one definitely would be runner-up for what weighed on me the most. And that doesn't mean that Jacob's mission and Overlord didn't. I think just for me personally, playing those missions had a heavier effect than they have in the past.
Yeah, totally fair. What do we feel that Mass Effect 2 got right?
The combat is the best it's ever been at this point. I still think that 3 will have the better combat, though I haven't played it in a while, so we'll see. We won't know till I start it, because I haven't touched it in years. But at this point, remembering what I remember, 2's combat was almost perfect. The way they let you map the buttons, the way that the moves work, the trees in this, like giving mobility to characters that didn't have it, like the Vanguard having the charge and things like that, I think was absolutely spot on. And I would say the story, of course. I think the story in the second one's, I think it's better than the first in a different way. The first is still good. But I think like definitely the combat and the story, the writing, I could go on, are the things that stood out as like what they got right with little to no issue. I would say the overall story more than all of the writing and story, as we've complained about some of it, like we mentioned Jacob earlier. But I'd say the overall story of the game and the combat are my two things like they absolutely got right with almost no issue.
I agree with you on combat. Combat was definitely much smoother than Mass Effect 1. It was definitely easier to enjoy because in Mass Effect 1 it's easy to get frustrated and just like I just want to get through this. I just want to kill this and move on. Whereas in this I didn't feel that way ever. Like sometimes the fight was hard, but not because of the mechanics, just because it was kind of hard. Like, and that's fine. I love the ensemble cast. I love that we take time to get to know them better with the loyalty missions. I love the loyalty missions. It's my favorite thing. What else do I feel like got right? I feel like the romances were more nuanced than in Mass Effect 1. You had more choices, not as many as I would have liked, but you still had more choices. So there was that.
Okay.
I think that's the end of my answer.
Well, next, let's chat a little bit about what it got wrong. And this list is a little longer now that we've come as far as we have. My number one issue, above and beyond any other issue in this game, is that the game has been out for as long as it's been out on PC and console. And while on consoles, I get that it's harder to patch older consoles, the fact that the PC version still has game-breaking glitches on Origin, the primary PC platform, or even on Steam, a platform that's been around for a long time that has games older than this that have been patched and fixed, it's just unacceptable. The fact that I pick Legion on a certain mission in Overlord and it crashes the game until I don't pick him is inexcusable.
Yeah,
it's
that's
just
a nightmare.
It just doesn't make sense. Like, I get that it may not be easy to make that kind of patch, but if it's a legacy game that people are still playing and talking about and one of your favorite franchises, why wouldn't you patch out a bug like that? Especially if I could Google it in 10 seconds. If it's something that was hard to find or that doesn't always happen, like walking up on the terrain or getting stuck on parts of the environment, that might be harder to patch out because that doesn't happen in the same place every time, except on that one mission that I played where the ship is falling. But the fact that you have bugs in a PC version of this game that is always almost connected to the internet that you can't patch it just seems inexcusable to me. So that's the big thing of what they got wrong. The more minor gripe is some of the writing. It's still not queer enough. There's still not a lot of, like, there's customization and there is the ability to customize your experience, but, you know, we're limited in gender choice, which I get for the time it came out.
Yeah.
But I feel like more importantly with that is like the hair options are super limited and super gendered. You know, it just, there are limitations that playing the game now feels archaic, that I know it came out in a time. And so that's why, of course, I'm willing to forgive it. It is still one of my favorite games, but it's definitely harder to forgive now in a modern time where we have more options, more awareness, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, one of my big complaints is that there aren't a lot of queer options, that the aliens themselves aren't queer coded, which makes no sense whatsoever. Like, at that point, if you're dating someone of a different species, is gender going to stand in your way?
Right, exactly.
You don't have the same genitals anyway.
Yeah, what does it matter?
Like,
yeah, no, I agree.
That's ridiculous in my opinion. And just, I feel that it doesn't matter necessarily. Like, some people, their opinion is like, why can't this character just be straight? Like, well, I mean, I guess, but they can be. If I choose not to romance them, that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to romance someone if you don't want to. That's the point. That is the point I'm trying to make. But there's definitely just not enough queer representation. They do a lot of abuse of women in some missions that I just can live without.
Yep.
I think they get better about it in 3, but in 2, they're really not good about it. What else? Jacob's mission, entirely problematic and awful and bad, and please treat your people of color much better. Like,
Yes, please.
Like, can you imagine being a person of color on that team, writing that mission, just being like, okay.
I mean, so here's the thing that's worth bringing up that they don't get right. Why are the humans still not very diverse? Like,
yeah, there's not a lot of different body types.
No, not. I mean, all the body types are the same for men and women. There's no plus size characters, but also there are
mostly white people.
Mostly white people. Jacob's the only character of color, and like, why? You have so many humans on the ship. Why isn't there a Japanese character or a Chinese character or an Indian character or literally a Hispanic character? Anything other than white person.
Yeah.
And like, yes, your shepherd doesn't necessarily have to be white, which we're both playing ourselves and we are both Caucasian. So yeah, which would add diversity too. But like, there's no reason why the pre-gen characters can't have a little more diversity either.
It's just very silly. I think they do better in Mass Effect 3, but again.
I think so too. Well, yeah, I mean, they do have a few more characters of color in that game, but still, the diversity could be better.
What else did Mass Effect 2 get wrong? Yeah, I really did not like the ending.
Which ending?
The ending of the suicide mission, where you have to face off with a human Reaper. It just, I don't know, it felt so anticlimactic.
Yeah,
There was
I think
something lacking from that final fight.
Well, yeah, I think I like the concept of the final fight because I actually enjoy how it dives into boss tropes in video games. But the problem with that fight now is we have fights like with the Shadow Broker or Overlord, which are good boss battles in Mass Effect, that it makes that boss battle feel worse. And even Arrival is a better ending to the story, I feel like. Because we even get to confront Harbinger, which we had up until that point. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think that the suicide mission is anticlimactic. I do like the fact, though, that you can lose squad mates and that it is sectioned off.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that they put a lot of what's leading up to the end of the game into that final mission in the same way that a lot of Mass Effect 3 is just a combination of everything from the first 2 games. Mm-hmm. It's like one giant ending, which is always my argument for why I like 3. But again, it's been a while. But yeah, no, I agree. I think that but I think that said, I am grateful for the DLC we get that highlights and fixes some of the flaws from the other missions within the game. Like, they were learning as they were going.
Yeah. I feel like maybe the reason why I felt it was so anticlimactic is because we don't get that face-off with Harbinger. Like, we never get a direct, like, you're the cause of all my issues.
Correct. We just know the collectors in general are.
Yeah. And it's, I don't know, it felt like I was delaying the inevitable.
Right. Whereas in the first game, you face off with Saren, the person you've been chasing the entire time.
Yeah. It's so much more direct.
Correct. And in the first game, you could skip the first fight with Saren depending on how you manage it. And like, we both were able to convince Saren that there was good in him. And then when you fight the Reaper's consciousness in Saren, and it all feels like a culmination of everything that has been leading up to. And you already spoke to what's the Reaper in the first game's name? I'm blanking
Sovereign.
Right now. Sovereign. You speak to Sovereign before you even fight Saren, and so like, that's a good progression of conflict and encountering the real villains. Whereas in this, yeah, you're right, we never speak to Harbinger at all. We never even encounter the main collector that Harbinger is controlling in the massive ship. it just all kind of ends. So yeah, I totally get it.
What are we looking forward to in Mass Effect 3?
That's a great question. I'm looking forward to replaying it, period. The problem with being as excited for that game as it was when it first came out is that it was almost impossible for it to not disappoint. Only because there's a level of expectation that is kind of impossible to overcome. In a similar way that I actually want to go back and play Chrono Cross, the sequel to Chrono Trigger, because I hated it when it first came out on PlayStation, because I was like, well, this isn't Chrono Trigger, this sucks, and that's unfair. Because nothing's going to be that Super Nintendo game, right? You can't capture that experience again. And I think there was a lot of that with Mass Effect 3. It's why I never played the Citadel DLC. It's why I never played through it more than once or twice, I think. And so I am looking forward to playing it for the podcast. I also have started my Rain Shepherd playthrough, which I've shared some screenshots of, so I can play through the trilogy again on my own time and re-experience everything on my own time, making decisions as I feel for the narrative instead of based on what I want. Though what I may want is Garrus, because it's an option.
Who doesn't want Garrus? Garrus is great.
But yeah, so I think the thing I'm looking most forward to, and it's kind of a cop-out answer, but it's the whole thing. I guess I wouldn't. Fair. I guess I'd be lying if I didn't say I was looking forward to Citadel the most. The Citadel DLC, just because I've heard so much about Shore Leave, and everyone freaks out when I tell them I haven't played it. So I'm obviously looking forward to that.
That's one of the things that I'm looking forward to is your experience of Citadel.
Thank you.
It is one of my favorite things, and I don't want to spoil it for you, and it's so hard for me to not spoil it for you, because I'm like, there's so much about it that's going to make you happy, and I want you to experience it and know joy.
Yeah, and spoilers for Season 3 a little bit, but when I told former guest Liana Rupert, I got all French on it, when I told her that I hadn't... I know. When I told her I hadn't done that mission and she was looking through our spreadsheet to pick which episode she was going to guest on, she's like, oh, I have to be on that episode with you. I have to see your reactions. So you can look forward to that in Season 3. We will release the episode map for the third game as we get closer to Season 3. But yeah, so short answer, all of Mass Effect 3, long answer, Shore Leave specifically.
I am looking forward to your experience with Shore Leave. I'm looking forward to some great characters that we get in Mass Effect 3. Like I said, they do a little bit better with queer representation, and they do a little bit better with diversity. So I'm looking forward to seeing those characters again, because I think they're brilliant and I love them. I'm really looking forward to being back together with my bird boyfriend. I really love the way that romance works out. It's so good. It makes me happy.
Yep.
There's a really cute scene in DLC about it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to, in the third game, being unfamiliar. The way my romantic involvement in the games playing as myself has gone, I'm going to experience a lot of stuff I've not experienced before. Like, I never had feelings for Kaden the first time through, which I do now. And I'm curious to see how that will progress in the third game. I'd never pursued a relationship with Jack before, which was great. And I really like Jack. I found to love her character more than I'd had before because I got to know her better. And I know what mission she's in on the third game. And so I'm curious to see how that plays out.
It's going to be
really
so much
exciting.
Fun for you.
Well, we'll see.
Do we have any regrets about the way we played?
Yeah, I kind of regret the decisions I made in Garrus's mission. I think that they were impulsive and uncharacteristic, but I guess in a way that is characteristic of me. I've made those kinds of decisions in my own past. But I do regret that decision. I wish I had given Garrus better closure than that. And that's really it. I think I regret not playing with a controller, but as we agreed, I'm playing these games as they're intended. But let everyone in on a little secret. I started replaying the first game, and there is a controller mod, and it is glorious. It's like playing it on an Xbox.
You're
But I
such a
do want
nerd.
to, yeah. What about you? Do you have any regrets about the way you played the second game?
So there is one mission, and I cannot remember which one it was for the life of me. And I remember thinking that I didn't feel as if I played it like myself. I felt like I
Okay.
was just going through the motions. And for the life of me, I can't remember which mission this was. I feel like maybe it was... I can't even, like, pick it out. Maybe it was the Justicar, because I can't remember what decision I made. I don't know.
Okay.
I honestly don't remember which mission this is, and that's why, like, I regret not playing it like myself, because maybe if I did, I'd remember
Right.
it better. But yeah, like, I had this moment where I was just going through the motions and I wasn't really thinking critically like I should have been. So I regret that.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. And I think, like, we're putting extra pressure on ourselves to play these games a certain way, something that we may have done at some point, but not to the level that we're doing now, because we're being even more critical and even more hyper-focused than we ever have before playing these games.
And the last question that I have prepared was, what do we want from a remaster or remake?
This is a loaded question. So here's the problem, right? And a lot of it came to light with people complaining about Final Fantasy VII Remake. And, like, if someone remakes something, should they change it? Should they not change it? If they change it, what should they change? Honestly, I don't want a remake. I want a remaster. I want prettier graphics, better sound, and some streamlined gameplay, quality of life improvements, like maybe Mass Effect 3's combat system throughout all three games, or at least the same powers and level up system through all three games. Which then, yeah, you are kind of remaking it a bit, but like maybe tweaks to missions, making character dialogue more interactive, making Zaid in the remaster a full-fledged character that you can check in with, or maybe even romance, like things like that.
Zaid has a very specific type.
Yes, he does. I think those kinds of things are what I want. I mean, honestly, I want it to be portable and play it on the Switch. If they literally spit out ports of the games as they are on current hardware on the Switch, I would buy it and play it. But they're not going to do that. But yeah, I think I want it to be polished up, shined up, give us HD graphics, improve the character creator, like just a fresh coat of paint. I don't want them to change mission content, remove characters, add characters. Like, I don't need any of that stuff. I don't even need the ending changed. I just want maybe a more streamlined, cohesive experience throughout the three games with a fresh coat of paint.
Yeah, I mean, that's all perfectly valid and good, and those are things I want too. What I would also like, though, is for them to, like, open things up a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
why put restrictions on who you can romance?
Yeah.
That's boring and lame. Just let it be a free-for-all. Do what Dragon Age 2 did. It was wildly successful. Just do it. Like, who cares? And it shouldn't be that hard to just switch some, like, template designs and just change some colors. Like, you can make it diverse a little easier. Like, it'd be great if there were different body types, but fine. I will give you a pass on it, because whatever. It would be a dream if they would rewrite Jacob's mission, but I don't expect that.
Yeah,
Like,
that's probably not going to happen.
I really don't expect that. I don't expect them to rewrite or change anything in that way.
Right.
I just want a little more freedom, and the freedoms I want are things that they can easily do.
Yep.
So
I think also something that they could easily implement is not choosing a gender.
yeah, I think that too. I think you can introduce.
I think you can change it to feminine and masculine, maybe, or just customize the body type you want.
Yeah. Like, select body type A, B, or C.
Yeah. And,
And, like, choose these pronouns.
Yeah.
And, like, everybody's going to call you Shepherd anyway.
Yeah. That's
so
true.
It's not like there's a lot of gendered language. Every once in a while, they'll refer to you by your pronoun, but very rarely. So it shouldn't be that hard for them to, like, add in a third option of they.
I agree. I think that would be really cool and progressive. Because BioWare is a company that has tried to be that and has not always been successful. And so it would be cool to see.
Yeah. And also, like, no more limitations on what hairstyles for which body type. Like, just let people have what they want. It's fine.
Probably the best thing Animal Crossing New Horizons did on Switch is you don't pick a gender, you just pick hairstyle and body type, I believe. Or not even, I think you just pick the clothes. Yeah. Give us that freedom.
Be more like Animal Crossing.
Yes, exactly. Something we should all strive for.
That's our call to action for this episode.
Is be more like Animal Crossing. Yeah, give me fishing in Mass Effect. I want to catch fish. Let me do it.
You technically do.
That's true. You do.
You technically do.
You do. Alrighty. Well, that's all the stuff that we've prepared ourselves, but we have some questions from our loyal listeners. So we will answer your questions. From specifically two.
And 3 questions are from 1.
But we appreciate your enthusiasm and love you all the same. All right. What's our first question, MJ?
Case asked, if one piece of DLC could have been part of the launch game and thus be better integrated, what would you choose?
That's a good question. I feel like not Overlord. I feel like Shadow Broker is already really integrated. I don't think that could have been more integrated. I would say Arrival, personally. I think that Arrival is really great. I love how it sets up Mass Effect 3. And I understand that maybe they hadn't planned that far into the story. When 2 was made, who knew if they were working on 3 or not yet? And so I understand it comes later because it just had to. But that said, if it were more integrated into the story, like you had heard tell of this science team, or maybe you find a path to this, or maybe, you talk to these scientists with Anderson and like you find out why you really have to go there. I don't know. However they'd integrate it, but I would love for more integration for Arrival into the whole main story. Like maybe even Cerberus is involved somehow. Like all of that would be really cool.
Yeah, if that could somehow be like the actual ending.
Yeah.
I think that would be an improvement. For me, I would say Kasumi.
Sure.
Because she's a really interesting character, and she's great, and she's funny, and she's smart, and she's kind, and we do get to know a lot of her during her loyalty mission, but then she just hangs out on the ship and has like 5 snarky things that she says, and then that's it. Yeah. And like you can't really interact with her so much, and you can't romance her, and I think I like that she's not a romance option because she's still in love with Keiji.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
But, like, Samara's not a romance option, and you can still have conversations with her.
Right.
So, like, come on.
Yeah, it's the biggest shortcoming of both DLC characters, is how extra they feel. Kasumi less because you get to know her better, and she has more personality. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I agree.
Like, I would have liked a mission to actually acquire her instead of me just showing up on the Citadel and her having an advertisement yell at me, which was funny. I did like it.
Yeah, same.
But yeah, I think she could have been better integrated into it. Okay. Next question is from Mike. Most of us have probably played Mass Effect 3 quite a few times at this point. Are there any aspects, characters, plot points you would have liked to see Mass Effect 2 set up better or introduced sooner? And if so, how would you do it? That's a tough one.
That's a good question. I feel like, we get plenty with Caden or Ashley in this, but because they become such a main part of the next one too, and become so important in the next one, no matter what your choices are, I wish there was more with them in this. I get why there isn't. They're blowing you off, essentially. That's the whole point. But I kind of wish they could be more integrated. How? I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I want them as a squad mate. I don't know that that would be necessary. But yeah, I think that having them more integrated with the story, maybe showing up on the Citadel with you at certain times, like when you know you're going to be there. Like maybe you run into Caden or Ashley at a bar while you're doing Thane's mission on the Citadel or something. Like just have them kind of threaded through the story more, because they're an important character who kind of just disappears in the second game. And it bums me out a little bit. I get why, but I think that it would be fun to have that better threaded.
That's a good one. I'm struggling to think of something that I think could have been set up better. Mike suggested Kai Lang, for example, because Kai Lang is a character that we meet in Mass Effect 3, and we don't know anything about him until we meet him for the first time in Mass Effect 3.
Yep.
So he does get brought up, I think, in one of the Mass Effect novels, but I'm not sure which one. So maybe some hints of him, like, in the room with the elusive man.
Right. Yeah.
Like, just kind of his silhouette, even.
Yeah.
Would be like, oh, who's that? Who is that guy? So I think that would probably be really good, and I'm going to steal Mike's answer.
All right. Well then.
Mike also asked, where are all the space moms? Can we name a character whose mother is referenced? Aside from Liara and Shepard.
Well, no, because they aren't.
Actually, I can. Tali talks about her mom.
Oh, that's true. Tali does.
Also, there's a reference to Garrus's mom in Shadow Broker DLC if you actually take the time to look for it.
Yeah, I think this is a good question, Mike, because it brings up a more systemic problem, which is that most of the alien races don't show the women of that race. Like, there are no female Turians until the third game.
Like, there are just no female aliens. Except for Osari, and that's it.
And then dead female Krogans in the second game.
Yeah, that's
no
pretty
living
much it.
ones. Yeah,
that
so
would be
I think
something to bring to a remaster.
More women characters of all alien races. Yeah, no, I would like to see that. I mean, there's no reason to code idle folks hanging out on the Citadel or in Omega of multiple genders. It just does seem very strange.
It's like, why are there only men? Very confused. I lost my train of thought. Who else has a mom? If you give me a second, I'm sure I can think of one. Miranda doesn't, because she was genetically engineered.
Correct.
Jacob doesn't mention his mom, to my knowledge.
Not that I can recall.
Parents aren't a thing with Morden.
Nope.
I think that's it. I think Tali and Garrus are the only two that have mentioned their mom in any way. Because Tali talks about her mom and says, like, it felt like she faded into the background, and when she died, her dad just started working harder. And for Garrus, his mom has some disease that is difficult to cure, and he spent most of his money, the money that he got for this mission, on research to find a cure.
The only thing we've learned is that space needs more moms.
Yes.
That's what we need.
We need more Dr. Chakwas.
Right, obviously. Okay. What was Mike's third and final question?
How is our Shepard different from our previous playthroughs? Are there any decisions that we made this time around that we don't usually or haven't before?
That is a really good question.
So my Shepard usually lets Ashley die at Vermeer. So this is one of the very rare times that I let Caden die instead. And I had, like, a justifiable, well, not justifiable, but, like, I had a reason for it and not just arbitrarily deciding between the two of them. Other things that did differently. I let Jacob, like, basically tell his father to kill himself.
Yeah.
Usually I tell him, like, the law will sort it out. But lately I've been like, well, fuck the law. I don't have faith that they're actually going to take care of these people. So let him kill himself. That's fine. What else did I do differently? Trying to think. Oh, I played as a Sentinel instead of a Vanguard. I always play Vanguard, but this time I tried to play a little bit truer to my personal strengths. So I am not necessarily a shooty person. So I think I would be a little more sneaky and magic-y.
That's fair. That's fair.
Those are the only things I can think of. How about you?
So, for one, my shepherd is pursuing romances that I've never pursued before. We talked about that earlier. I found an interest in Caden that I'd never had in previous playthroughs and all the times that I've played the game. Pursuing Jack as well, a character who I kind of wrote off in previous playthroughs. I would say also Vanguard is very true to myself. It's my favorite class. I play it more than the other classes. I would say that I regret that a little bit. And might change my class in the third game. I'm undecided, but like,
yeah.
Well, because I like Vanguard, but I always play Vanguard, and like for this, I'm still playing Vanguard. I think I went Infiltrator or Sentinel on my personal playthrough that I'm doing as my femshep. But yeah,
I mean, Vanguard makes sense for you.
Yeah, I mean it does. I run in without thinking and try to solve everything.
Exactly.
With my head first. So yeah, but definitely the way I pursued relationships in this playthrough is very different. Also, some of my interactions, some easy to make renegade choices in the past, I did not make this time around because I was like, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't electrocute a mechanic when he's not looking just to get what I want.
I might.
Yeah, I know.
Look. I have just been resurrected. I am salty as hell.
Yeah, and then I definitely think my shepherd had more patience on this playthrough than I have in other playthroughs. Like I said, getting reactionary with certain things. So yeah, those are the big things I can think of.
Okay, cool. We got in a couple more questions from our pod friends, the Headline Heroes. One of their questions is, which Normandy do you like better?
That's a really good question, actually, and not something we've talked about. I think I like the second game's Normandy better.
I like the SR2 better, except for the buck wild bathrooms.
Yeah, well, we already know you're a bathroom hater. That we've talked
no,
about. No,
I hate those specific bathrooms.
Right, I know.
They are very bad and poorly designed.
I agree.
They do not afford any privacy.
Yeah, I like the SR2 better. I think it's just a better layout.
The cabin is much nicer.
Much, much nicer.
Okay. We were also asked, by the end of this game, what species are most prepared for the inevitable Reaper invasion? Least prepared?
I don't know. I feel like none of them are prepared.
Yeah, I feel like no one is prepared. No one is prepared at all. Like, humans are maybe 1% more prepared than everyone else just because Anderson and Hackett are on Shepard's side.
Yes.
And I think, that's it. Maybe Asari?
I would say maybe the Asari, because the Asari commandos and the Justicars, like, they haven't brushed off this threat, but even still, their representative on the council doesn't care. So, like,
yeah, I just feel like technologically, they are probably in a better place to meet this threat.
Yeah, I would agree, but I feel like because of how flippant the council is, who knows how they're disseminating the information to those they report to. So I feel like no one is prepared. I'd say that the least prepared are maybe the Hanar, just because they are not really a warfaring race.
Look, the Hanar found an entire race of people and said, hey, do you want to come live on our planet and we'll turn most of you into assassins? Is that cool? Yeah. So I think maybe you were misjudging the Hanar.
That's true. You make a good point.
Another question from Headline Heroes is what choices were hardest to make? We have talked about this a little bit, but for me, one of the hardest choices to make was whether to rewrite or to destroy the Geth.
Yeah. Yeah, I talked about that as one of the missions that had the most impact on me. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. I wrestled with the choice to whether to shoot Garrus's old companion or not.
Sidonis.
Sidonis, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Names are hard.
Yeah, I think those are two very difficult decisions to make.
Yeah. I can't think of others at the moment. Though I will say this question is a good opportunity for me to say there were a lot more choices that I wrestled with this time around that I didn't think twice about in the past. And that was really interesting to me.
Well, yeah. I think when you have to consider the consequences instead of just like, oh, Paragon is obviously the good choice. Let me just do all the good choices. It's harder.
Yeah, it's definitely much harder. Headline Heroes asked a ton of other questions, but we've answered them already. But thank you for your enthusiasm, as well as Mike and Case as well. Thank you for submitting questions. We appreciate it. We don't always remember to take fan questions, but when we do, we do it well.
Well, I expected Ian to chime in, but Ian must be busy.
Way to screw up, Ian.
Oh, don't be mean to Ian. Ian, don't listen to Matt.
Nobody does.
Exactly. Keep that going.
Oh, gee, thanks. All right. Well, this is almost it. This is almost the end of our second season. We've got one more thing happening. And then after that, we move on to Mass Effect 3. We're going to release the map soon. A big thank you to MJ for working on that.
Are we not going to tell them what the thing is?
I'm getting there.
Okay, fine.
Getting there. Saving the best for last.
I'll just go fuck myself, okay?
Look, you just told nobody to listen to me, all right? I don't want to hear it. So the episode map, like we had for 2, will come out for 3 before we start the 3rd season, so you keep an eye out for that. But the next thing we're doing is bringing back previous guest Josh Kostler, who has agreed to run a one-shot tabletop. We were going to do this last season, but due to complications with our players and our DM last season, it never happened, and I'm bummed about it. Hopefully we'll get back to that. But this time, we are playing, pause for dramatic effect, the Blasto Holiday Special. This is a one-shot campaign created by Josh Kostler. It will be, it's based on Blasto and Blasto's movies. For those who don't remember, Blasto is a rampaging action hero-y Hanar.
The first Hanar Spectre.
The first Hanar Spectre. And we will not be revealing all of the characters, but our players are also previous guests. We will be joined by John Bradley Lestrange and Case Aiken to be players along with me and MJ, and I will be playing the role of Blasto. So
I'm very excited.
It should be really silly. I have to practice my Hanar and saying this one a lot.
I told Matt that he wasn't allowed to do anything else. He just had to be Blasto. That was it.
And I was like, sure, I'm in. Let's do it.
I'm really excited about this because Josh and I, we work the Renaissance Fair together, and one night at the campfire we were talking about Reignite, and we were like discussing his episode down the line and everything, and I talked about how we wanted to do that one shot, and he was like, oh, I will host it, I will do it. And then we started talking, and just the conversation developed, and he had this other idea, but then I think I suggested, like, what if we did a Blasto movie, though? And he was like, scrap that idea, I am on this one now.
Yeah. So big thank you to Josh. We're very excited. That'll be the next episode after this, and we'll round out the season, and then we will be back with Mass Effect 3. And we promise to provide a episode map before we start the 3rd season, so you all can play up to where we play for the 1st episode. Thank you for playing along with us. We love all of you, and I'm looking forward to sharing in the insanity that will be the Blasto Holiday Special on the next episode.
But it won't be insanity mode.
No, it won't.
I can't deal with that. I'm going to also resist the urge to sing "It's a New Season" from Gallivant when we start season 3.
Thank you.
You're welcome. If you like what you heard here, follow us on social media. We are at ReignitePod on Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram, facebook.com/reignitepod, or you can send us an email at reignitepod@gmail.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcatcher. It helps us get seen so other people can find us.
Yep. A iTunes review goes a really long way. It helps us to get featured so other folks can find the show and join in the conversation. Speaking of the conversation, we are part of the incredible Certain POV network. CertainPOV.com is where you go to get a ton of different shows, all with a nerdy point of view. We've added a ton of new shows to the lineup as well. And you can also find a link to our Discord server where we got a lot of the questions we read today on the show, as well as there's a lot of discussion. We share screenshots. We talk about playthroughs. We talk about what's coming up on the show itself. So definitely go to CertainPOV.com, check out the website, all the other podcasts, and the link to our Discord server.
We also work on some other projects. I do 2 other podcasts. One is called The Circle of Friendship, where I talk about the works of Tamara Pierce with my good friend Anna. I also do one called the Rob Thomas, No Not That One, Robcast, where we talk about the works of Rob Thomas. No, not that one.
I have many podcasts on the network as well. Screen Snark, which is a casual conversation about media with a different guest every episode. Fun and Games Podcast, which is a focused topic discussion about video games, either with a guest or a specific topic or trope within the games industry. We also just recently launched a short form series on the Fun and Games feed called Fun and Games Side Quests, where we're featuring a different host every episode for about 5 to 15 minutes talking about one of their favorite games and why they love it. MJ has done an episode that by now has aired, all about Skies of Arcadia, which is a game we both love very much. And by the time this goes up, there will actually be a ton more. They're all short, super shareable, super easy to listen to. And if you're listening and you have a recording setup that can provide quality audio and want to submit one, please reach out to me on Twitter or on Discord, because I want to cycle in as many folks talking about games as possible. And then finally, I have an interview series, Autographs, which I've been doing for a very long time, and I've had a ton of really great guests. Crash Course Autographs. You can find it on any podcasting platform. So yeah, go check all that stuff out.
Thank you to Red Sphinx for our It's Okay to Be a Marshmallow t-shirt on Redbubble, featuring our favorite marshmallow, Kaden Alenko. You can find more of their work at Chaos Does Art on Instagram. We'd also like to thank Case Aiken for developing more amazing shirt designs that you can find through CertainPOV.com or on Teespring, and David Boyle for designing our logo, which you can also get on a shirt through Redbubble. Finally, thank you to Dan Bull for letting us use the Mass Effect rap for our theme music. I'm MJ.
And I'm Matt, aka Stormageddon. We should go.
You're listening to Reignite. I'm Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite podcast on the Citadel.
It all started with a mouse, and in the last 100 years, the magic of Disney has filled our homes and hearts and defined generations. Join the Doe Up in Dreams podcast as they take a deep dive into the Disney vault and examine the history, artistry, controversy, and even drama behind your favorite Disney films with host Maddie Limerick. With guests ranging from Imagineers, Broadway stars, voice actors, and even your favorite Certain POV hosts. You'll want to tune in each episode to see what magic they'll dig up next. Find out more at CertainPOV.com and wherever you find podcasts.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.